There's a pretty one, Ulysses. There it is.
Hello, BookTube. I'm Sean the Book Maniac. How's my collar? Goodness, I don't like the way it hangs quite, but it's a lovely blouse, and it's long sleeve weather. It's about 13 degrees, and some of you said I looked cold in my last video. Not my last video, but one of the earlier videos where it was around this temperature. I do miss my warm coffee. Somebody give me your advice, because this is something practical, but sometimes people heat up a tin can of food by putting it in water and heating the water on the stovetop. Would that make this explode if I did that? With the lid on, with the lid off? People that know something about anything, please weigh in. But yeah, it's a little cool, but I love cool. So if I look cold, please know that I am very comfortable. I am Sean the Book Maniac, did I say that? And this is my Saturday reads. Yesterday, Friday was a big day, didn't get to it, and it gave me a chance to finish up a whole bunch of stuff. So I'll talk about the books in a bit. I have lots of news. Oh my goodness. Coffee. It's very rare for me to have a title for a Friday or Saturday reads video before I even start filming, but I think the title of this video will be Furniture for Book Nerds, as I have furniture stories, boys and girls. My stuff from Tokyo is now in my apartment. It came to Vancouver 3 weeks ago. It took that long to get processed and here to Saskatoon, and it was moved in yesterday morning before lunch. And really, it wasn't that much. 13 boxes 13 boxes. So you wouldn't know coming into my apartment without really kind of looking in closets and stuff that there's been a bunch of stuff has been brought in, because it wasn't that much. I have just barely started to unpack I think 3 boxes, and they're big boxes. I think it was 200 books I brought. So I haven't really, just barely started to unpack those. Really haven't done very much, but they got in, and it was very exciting. And my computer is, I think, working. I'm still fooling with it, but it's basically working about as good as it did in Tokyo. So the only impact that will have, I think, the one big impact that will have for me, because I have for a long time done my editing on my iPad, is that I will be able to go back to doing Zoom chats on the computer. So, knowing that those books were coming, and that the books that are coming in the mail are coming in, this week, 34 more boxes came. I don't have them. Mom and Dad are bringing them in from the farm tomorrow. I decided to do something that I had in the back of my mind for quite some time. I had a diamond ring that was given to me upon the death of my step-grandfather, Mel. He was a lovely man, and I wore it. The ring itself, I hate jewelry. I think jewelry is stupid. Kenji and I won't embarrass myself by telling you how much Kenji and I paid for our wedding rings that we ordered on the internet that we never wear. But yeah, I think jewelry is ridiculous. So I stopped wearing it because the back of the gold ring kind of cracked or broke. And threw it in the bottom of a box in Tokyo years ago, several moves ago. And as I was getting ready to leave Tokyo, I thought, that diamond ring, it's probably worth something. I wonder where it is. And then I thought, yeah, I probably threw it in the bottom of a box, and I'm going through boxes and throwing stuff out. I got to check these boxes very carefully. And without a word of exaggeration, it was the very last box that I dealt with and cleaned out and threw most of the contents away, that the ring was, sure enough, at the very bottom of the box, just hanging loose. And, I had to check under the cardboard flaps because that's where it was, and I found it. So I brought it home, and this week I sold it for $400. I probably could have held out and it's probably, the appraisal value is probably more than double that, but $400 is $400, and $400 enabled me to go and buy 3 more bookshelves of these beautiful, tall, gray ones. Stay tuned, I will show them soon, because they're soon going to be full of books, because they were on sale at Canadian Tire. And we haven't put them together. It's a big job to put them together. It took my nephew, I think, 2 or 3 hours for the first one, and then about 45 minutes for the second one. So I think he's got it down pat. But I'll get those put together and up, and that should be enough to house almost all of my books. Certainly the ones that I have now. So that's very exciting. I actually got chatting about books and reading with the lovely cashier at Canadian Tire, whatever day that was this past week. I think it was Wednesday or something, I'm not sure. I believe her name is Kathy. And I ended up telling her about my channel, and I said, I'll be talking about you on the weekend if you watch my Friday reads, which ended up that this is a Saturday reads. But hello, Kathy, did I remember your name correctly? Are you watching? Please leave a comment. She reads a lot of true crime and a wide variety of stuff. I'm not sure how much fiction she reads, but maybe we'll get to know Kathy on this channel. So welcome, Kathy, if you're out there. And 2 other purchases. One is going to transform my Friday and Saturday reads experience. I am just delighted. The umbrella, I tested it in this area. These picnic benches and park benches are exactly the same as in that other park over there. The clamp doesn't fit. So the umbrella is useless. I almost had it attached to the green metal trash can over there. I'm in Canada. We have trash cans in public. What a concept. But the umbrella just doesn't go high enough that I can't stand under the umbrella, beside the trash can. I mean, it wasn't going to work. So I was feeling despondent that maybe I wouldn't be able to film outside very much, only on cloudy days. Today is a cloudy day. So on days like this. And I was feeling depressed about that because there's so much gorgeous nature and so many shady spots, none of which have any benches or, picnic tables within that shade. So I was feeling a bit forlorn and thinking, am I just gonna have to film in my house all the time or on my balcony, or what am I gonna do? And then suddenly it dawned on me, if the portable umbrella thing didn't work out, I need a portable chair. So I looked online, and there were some, but I didn't know if they were any good or whatever, blah, blah, blah. They seemed a little bit pricey, but they were collapsible and you could carry them, and maybe that would do the trick. And then I checked a new to me home hardware center that's come to Canada since I left. It's called Lowe's, Lowes, and they had a £5 lawn chair. There it is. For $10. So I was going out shopping with my mom for other stuff. I think that was the day actually of the jewelry sale. And we swung by Lowe's on the west side, and I picked up a chair, and Mom liked them so much she got one for herself. They're not the most comfortable chairs, but they will do. And if the sun comes out right now and it gets too bright for me, I can just move anywhere there's shade and park my chair in there and keep going. Or if it's a bright sunny day from the outset, I have a million places around here to choose from with my own chair. So, yay! The other thing that I got, because one day Mom was over at my place, I have a kind of a theater lounge type of electric recliner that's got a kind of a hump in the middle, like a big armrest that the 2 people on either side share, and Mom was sitting beside me, and she said, Sean, there's no place for me to kind of put my arm. You got all these books stacked up, my current reads, some of them. She said, that isn't really the best place for them. Well, 99% of the time I'm in my apartment alone and it wouldn't matter, but I got to thinking, I can't even get all my books on that stack or it would topple over. 15 current reads, people. Well, not right now, but stay tuned. So I remembered all the booktubers, and I can't remember who all it was, but I remember certainly Doris of Aldi Books. Bon voyage, Doris, darling. That found out about these colorful pastel book carts on wheels. They're like a library cart, but not that expensive, and I ordered one online. I'm not ready to show you my apartment yet, but here is my reading chair with my new pastel pink book cart. Isn't it fabulous? And that's where all my books are now housed, right beside me, and I can have them all there. As you can see, there's not 15 there, but because I finished up a bunch of stuff, but also because quite a few of them are ebooks. So how happy am I? So that's why this video shall be entitled Furniture for Book Nerds. It's been a glorious week. All right, I got lots of book news. I started one and finished 4, including the one I started. I'll talk about this one first because I'm not going to say very much about it, and that is the South African novel Scatterlings by Rešoketšwe Manenzhe. Because Bob and I are hoping to have a Zoom chat with the author, but there are issues, infrastructure issues, energy crisis issues that have delayed that, so I'm hoping it will still happen. If it doesn't happen, then Bob and I will have a nice chat about it for your viewing pleasure, and I'll get into all my thoughts on it soon. But I liked it, and it was a very thought-provoking novel. And probably worked for me better than most books that have quite a lot of intellectual things to chew on. So yeah, that's all I'll say for now. Stay tuned. I also finished the queer New Zealand novel Greta and Valdin by Rebecca K. Reilly. Just late last night I read this novel, and it was quite a chunky novel. Certainly the longest novel that I've read aloud to Kendra and Lindy, and I finished it yesterday. I'm giving it 4 stars. It was a delight on so many levels. I'm so glad I read it, and she is a writer to watch. I have a lot of criticisms of it, which I usually do because a 4-star rating is a low rating for Sean the Book Maniac. There was no way I could give it 5, even though there was quite a few things that I loved, because there were so many other things that I didn't love. So because the things that worked so well, I couldn't go lower than a 4. But anytime, I think if you go back through my archives, or if you've been paying attention to how I talk about my books, my 4-star reads, I usually have more negative than positive to say. So what did I love? And I'm not going to do a full review. What did I love? The humor. It was so funny. The prose just sang and was so infused with a whimsicality that when I was reading it, I chuckled at least once a page, if not several times every page. That was also part of the problem with the book for me. It was a little bit too funny. But anyway, Sean, accentuate the positive first. Really funny. I thought the characters were quite well drawn. Not fabulously well drawn, but quite well drawn. And most of the story was really interesting. But really, the 2 things that I loved the most was the wit and the writing. And I would say maybe especially the dialogue. The dialogue was whip smart. A little P.G. Wodehouse vibe going on with some of the humor, and especially in the dialogue. I haven't read very much Wodehouse, so don't quote me on that. Really impressive writing and humor. So those are the things that I enjoyed, and in fact the things that I loved about this book. The book wasn't completely a Sean book because it had a sitcom vibe. So this is where the humor was part of the problem for me. There were a lot of serious things going on, but they were treated so lightly that it was hard. I didn't get invested. The stakes were not high enough for me to really care about too much going on. The central romance plots for the 2 queer siblings, Greta and Valdin, were touching in places. So if a book touches me, then it's doing something right. But those plot lines almost got subsumed, buried under, and this is a typical debut novel flaw, an excess of plot. There were so many minor characters, so many minor storylines, and I didn't give a shit about any of that. And that was 80% of the book. I enjoyed the humor of the way it was all being discussed between the characters, and I liked the Greta and Valdin romance plot lines. But yeah, it wasn't a loose, baggy monster. It was a jam-packed, baggy monster of a novel, and that didn't work for me. It also had a real YA feel. The characters were in their 20s. I think that Valdin might have even been 30, and Greta was maybe in late 20s, but they seemed so young to me, and I felt like I was reading a YA novel, which is a bad thing in my books. So those of you who love YA, a lot of the things that I didn't like aren't going to apply to you. So I think you should check this book out because it's really quite wonderful in so many ways. Oh, that is a beautiful bird. Can I get that bird? I better turn it. Did I get it? Anyway, The other thing, and I did talk a bit with Lindy about this, and I don't think she particularly agrees with me, which often happens, and usually she's right, but I'm not sure if she'd be right on this point. I thought there was an unbelievable obtuseness among not only the titular characters, but all the other characters. Nobody seemed to know anything about their family members in this novel until the novel opened. Like, there were just some basic things about family history, and I mean, the family, it was an interesting family. Greta and Valdin's mother was Maori. Didn't feel that was particularly well explored in the novel, actually, but she was. And the father was Russian. And they both, I think, had queer siblings, and it was just the queerest family, which I thought was also, is that really believable? I mean, was there something in the water with this family that there were so many queer people in it? But, you know, it was interesting. But they didn't seem to understand or know anything. No, but everybody seemed really obtuse. And that wasn't believable. The things that they discovered about each other in the chapters of this novel, that people would just grow up knowing about their father or their sister or brother, that was weird. If there hadn't been so much of it, it would have been more believable, but that kind of grated on me as well. So that's a long, I probably talked 75% more about what I didn't like than what I did, but it was still a really good novel. Boy, Rebecca K. Reilly is so talented. I will definitely be following her career. And I think she might, I don't know if she writes for television, but there was a TV sitcom-y feel that maybe she's in the wrong genre, because she certainly has gifts that I very much appreciated. But the novel itself, overall, it was a 4-star book, so not that great of a book in Sean the Book Maniac's worldview. It's not available outside of New Zealand, unless that has changed. Oh, actually, you know what? The other day I saw it was available for $40 on, I think, one of the big booksellers, online booksellers. I think it might have been Book Depository. So those of you that have an allergy to Amazon, and at $40 is too expensive. Otherwise, you can get an ebook from the publisher, and I will put all those details in the show notes. And I both started and finished this Willa Cather novella, A Lost Lady. And I loved it. It was a 5-star read. Now, I have a huge social political critique of the story, but I tend to give writers, especially female writers, but I tend to give writers the benefit of the doubt when they write a story that's full of problematical social political stuff going on. I don't necessarily think that they believe the things the character believes, and that in large part they may have been writing this story as a way of critiquing all the stuff that's in the story. Do you know what I mean? So I broke my Willa Cather dry spell, my curse about Willa Cather that I talked about last week. I really, really enjoyed this. The writing was wonderful. It was I'm feeling self-conscious because somebody's walking by staring at me. He's got his headphones on, but it's funny how much more self-conscious I am about this when people can understand what I'm saying. But anyway, he's almost gone by and doesn't seem that interested in what I'm doing. But I don't think I'm going to do a full review, but I read this for a upcoming episode of the Mooks and the Gripes book podcast, where they're going to be discussing this novella. I think it's in early August. And so I don't know if they're having reader comments. They want viewers to give comments, and maybe, if they do, maybe I'll do that. But I read it to hear what other people thought of it. And if you are one of the people that read it, what did you think of it? It was a 5-star read for me. Originally published in 1923, it's set on the Western Plains in a small railroad town, Sweetwater. I don't know if it's set close to the time of publication. I'm pretty stupid about that kind of stuff, but it's certainly, well, it had to do with when the railroads come in, and I don't have that historical knowledge about the plains, but so it could have been around the turn of the century. And it's about one of the railroad magnates. I'm not sure if magnate would be the right word, but he is rich and he was involved in the railroad, Captain Forrester, and he has a beautiful, much younger wife, Mrs. Forrester, Marion Forrester. And she befriends a small boy in the town when he breaks his leg or his arm, I can't remember which, and sprains his ankle, something like that, early in the story, and she looks after him solicitously, and he just has kind of a crush on her, kind of a mother crush on her. Here comes the wind. I hope it doesn't rain. I'm not prepared for it to rain, but And then it's about the story of their relationship, and there's no romantic relationship other than that he has that kind of a romantic, very, very idealized affection for Mrs. Forrester, who is, maybe 20 years older than, no, more than, 30 years older than him, but very gregarious, outgoing. She's the belle of the ball. She's the socialite of this small town. And she and her husband are very well off. And then things change and they lose everything. Some kind of an economic depression or whatever, and they lose just about everything. Her husband gets ill, and I won't give any spoilers. He's not the narrator, but our protagonist, Neil, spelled unusually Niel, he discovers the dark side of Mrs. Forrester, and he's really disillusioned. And this is where my social political critique came in, because, well, I can't say too much without going into spoilers, so I won't say very much. But there was a whole whore Madonna complex thing going on in this novel, and I think that probably Willa Cather intended the reader to interrogate that, which is a verb that I've resisted for so long, but I still find myself using it. So what can I say instead? That Willa Cather intended us to think about and reflect upon and challenge, go deeper in our thoughts about what caused Neil to be so crestfallen, so disappointed, so judgmental about Mrs. Forrester from that point on in the story. But it's the story of economic decline, moral decline, but I had a lot of problems with that part of the story, and I think the estimable Willa Cather intended me to, but that was my reading of the novel, and it was so well done. I really enjoyed it. So I am back on the Willa Cather train. After all these years, I have broken that thing that was hanging over my head, going back to my grad school negative association with Willa Cather. She's a wonderful writer. I want to read and probably reread the stuff that I read kind of like an automaton in grad school, because I don't remember anything about the novels of hers that I read, except there was one about an artist, a female artist, an opera singer. That one I kind of remember. But yeah, this was great. So I'll put a link to the Mooks and the Grapes website where you can find their podcast, and it's the episode in early August that they're going to be discussing it. It's a short 133-page novella, so you could read it. You still have lots of time to read it in time for that episode. And if you've read it, let me know your thoughts. Just wonderful. Those darkening clouds are moving quite a lot. I better finish up fairly quick. I don't want to get rained on. I'm going to chance fate. I'm going to get half packed up, so if I have to pack up in a hurry, I can do so. Damn it, that umbrella where the clamp doesn't work would come in handy right about now. Anyway. There it is, all packed up. So the last book I finished, and probably the highlight of the reading week, although I started it much earlier, was the Canadian trans novel, Little Fish by Casey Plett. Oh, I loved it so much. The highest compliment I know how to pay this novel is it was almost as good as Detransition Baby. And it turns out that Casey Plett and Tori Peters are friends. Tori Peters gets an affectionate mention in the acknowledgements to this novel, but oh, I loved it. It's my first anything by Casey Plett. She has more recently had a short story collection out that Lindy raved about and then promptly gifted me her copy. Thanks again, Lindy. I don't know how autobiographical it is, it doesn't matter, but this is a story about a trans woman in Winnipeg who is also a sex worker, and that part of the storyline was so delicious and fascinating and the complete opposite of gratuitous, just like all this wonderful sex stuff in Detransition Baby was. And there was a sauciness and a bluntness to the way everything about our protagonist was narrated that I absolutely loved. I really loved the main character. She was wounded, she was screwed up, and she had a vitality and a fierceness, an affection for the people in her life that just rang so true. Wonderful character work in this novel, and also, much like Greta and Valdin, really fantastic dialogue. There was some humor, but it was a much more well-balanced between how the serious issues in the book, addiction, suicide, trans issues, sexuality, poverty, I liked the balance between the serious and the lighthearted in this book far more than I did in Greta and Valdin. And it was her debut, her novel debut. She had a short story collection that came out before this. But Casey Plett is so talented. Like Greta and Valdin, there was a lot going on. It was a big story, and that worked a whole lot better in this novel than it did. She pulled it off for the most part. There was maybe one or two things that I thought maybe didn't need to be delved into quite so much, or it could be left out. But for the most part, everything worked together really well, and I was just deeply impressed by it. I was so impressed by it that I don't have a whole lot to say about it. I just commend it to you. When I was, having my morning coffee and kind of looking stuff up about Casey Plett online, I stumbled upon Ben of Doom Antidote's thoughts on this novel that he read back in 2020, and a long comment that I left on that video where I said, "You've totally sold me on Little Fish," but I had forgotten completely that he was one of the people that put it on my radar, and he had some very prescient thoughts on the novel that I fully agree with now that I've read it myself. Lindy is a big fan of Casey Plett, and so she also has kept Casey Plett on my radar. I think she and I talked about this novel in one of her first Giller discussion videos that we ever did. We're going to do another one this year. Stay tuned. Lots of great readers agree with me, so I must be right. Anyway, there's lots of good, interesting stuff about Casey Plett online. You should check her out. One thing that I did want to tell you about is that I discovered on her website that she and another Canadian trans writer have started up a small press, and it is called Little Puss Press, and there is what is it? I believe it's a memoir or a trans manifesto is their debut publication. They have reissued a work of trans sci-fi, an anthology of trans sci-fi fiction that Casey Plett had been a contributor to, and they reissued that because it went out of print, and that other small press went away, I think. But their debut publication is this, called Faltas, Letters to Everyone in My Hometown Except My Rapist, by Cecilia Gentili. And it is coming out in October, and there is a special deluxe pack pre-order, which if I can justify the expense, I might have to get this and have an unboxing on my channel. But anyway, the book sounds fabulous, so I'll put a link to that in the show notes as well. I finished 4, and I'm only going to start 1. So that means I'm going to be in really good shape to hit the ground running with Women in Translation the week after next. Yeah, so the book I'm going to start it's one of my new style buddy reads where I don't actually do weekly check-ins with anybody or anything like that. No chapter breaks. Let's talk about the first 4 chapters next Saturday and blah blah blah. I don't do those anymore, but it's going to be the more loosey-goosey kind of buddy read with Heather of Soggy Expat Book Nerd, and it is the latest collection. It's not that new, 2014 I believe, but the most recent collection of short fiction by Margaret Atwood, Stone Mattress, 9 tales, on the Soggy Expat Book Maniac tag. Original video that Heather and I made, which was a hoot to do. It was the book by a Canadian author that she said she was most interested in. So after that, I said, well, I haven't read it. Let's do it together. So I'm gonna get started on that. It is actually a fairly chunky short story collection, almost 300 pages. Then I found this at a book sale here in Saskatoon, my first week back in town. So I've got the physical copy, and we will be making a Zoom chat video in the near future with our thoughts and impressions and insight into this book. The insight will be on Heather's side. So that's what I'm going to get started. Oh, well, it doesn't look like it's going to rain now, and in fact there's a little bit of blue sky. So, lovely. Anyway, I'm done. Thanks for watching.